Hey, let's hear it for Tania.
Yeah.
That was really good. If you like that kind of thing. This is a true story that happened here in San Francisco. San Francisco, anyone?
I've heard of it.
I was vacuuming the bedroom one rainy afternoon a while back and feeling proud of myself. I pushed the vacuum alongside the edge of the bed and even underneath the dresser, just like a grown-up. But no sooner had I bent down to move some books than I spotted a dusty old scrap of paper. I recognized it instantly, and all at once I realized my adult life had become a series of wrong turns. I sat on the edge of the bed, unfolded the paper, and read for the 500th time the words my wife had scribbled nearly a decade ago. Bunch Muncherossi, MD. We'd been at a bar one drunken night in our early 20s, and in the way that young people do, we'd figured out something important about life. I hadn't wanted to forget it, so Amy kindly wrote it down. Bunch Muncherossi, MD. It was shorthand for this important truth, a reminder I could look at periodically and flash back to that wisdom. I put the scrap of paper into my back pocket that night, and I'd kept it there for years, or moved it into other back pockets along with my credit cards and old receipts. As I sat on the bed that afternoon, a wave of memories came back. Life as a 20-something, life without a baby, life scribbling things exuberantly in bars. There's just one thing I couldn't remember. Who the hell was Bunch Muncherossi, MD? I had no recollection of who he or she was, or maybe what Bunch Muncherossi, MD was. It sounded name-like, but then why would someone be named Bunch? I'd carried these words around for years, and now I'd forgotten what they stood for in the first place. I asked Amy. She remembered the name, but couldn't recall its significance. I asked friends, no luck. I Googled Bunch Muncherossi, MD, then just Bunch Muncherossi, then just Muncherossi. Nothing at all, even when I varied the spelling. Yes, I didn't put it in quotes. Filipino kumquat airplane trout will get you 50,000 results, but you get 0 for Bunch Muncherossi. It was strange, suspicious even. I started to think about Bunch Muncherossi more and more. Sometimes I pictured a stooped old surgeon with hairy ears. Other times she was a cranky Indian princess. For a while it wasn't a person, but a secret invention Amy and I had heard about in the bar. In 10 years, every home in America would have a Bunch Muncherossi, MD, if not an MD 3000. Bunch Muncherossi, an acronym? No, Bunch Muncherossi, Bunch Muncherossi. It had come to signify something desperately important, but it was just out of reach. Bunch Muncherossi, Bunch Muncherossi, Bunch Muncherossi, Bunch Muncherossi, Bunch Muncherossi. I'm not crazy. That's the problem, actually. I'm a sane person with a lovely wife and a fat baby, and we walk to the grocery store. And when the cats get fleas, we get the flea medicine. And when people say to Netflix Dexter, we Netflix Dexter. But there's a certain craziness to day-to-day sanity, I've learned. As we get older and figure out how to live grown-up lives more or less successfully, a deeper strangeness slips away. It's a form of lunacy to master life, to edit the miraculous oddness of human existence into a tidy routine. I pay PG&E on time. I never eat a handful of ladybugs. I don't run for Congress or wake up at 3 a.m. to dig a giant hole. I might live the rest of my life without ever throwing a fishing net over a businessman on Market Street. In a small way, Bunch Muncherossi, MD, came to represent a path out of the knowable and back into the sublime. In my mind, it was as if I discovered a guide to freeness itself, then fucked up and lost the map. Well, life goes on. A few months after finding that scrap of paper, I flew to Austria for an assignment. At night, I'd wander into cheerful Austrian bars along the Danube, and I was at one such bar when it occurred to me maybe this here was freeness. Here I was with a strange plate of boiled meat, strange polka playing on the jukebox, a pair of strange Canadians talking about Montreal to my left. I sat there happily for the next hour. at which point one of the Canadians laughed a Canadian laugh, said bunch muncherossi, and the two walked out into the night. The fuck? By the time I counted my euros and scrambled out into the street, I couldn't find those guys. But what would I have said? I think maybe one of you maybe mentioned bunch muncherossi. Like I said, I'm not crazy. On the plane home, I considered the obvious. The Canadian at the bar had actually said he had a hunch about a Maserati or a lunch of calamari. But something else occurred to me too. Was it possible the mysterious figure at the root of this whole thing wasn't Bunch Muncherossi MD, but in fact me and Amy? Could it be we'd unconsciously left a riddle for our future selves? A seed for a tree that would eventually grow into something unrecognizable to the very people who planted it? Amy picked me up at the airport and we drove home, chattering about our time apart and me leaning into the back seat to look at our daughter. Was it possible we'd foreseen how things go in life? That you file something meaningful away, cling to it intently, then wake up one day to find it simply vaporized, replaced by other things? I don't know, sorry. But in thinking it over, I think I figured out something more important. I think I figured out a way to be unmoored a little, and therefore just a tiny bit freer than we are at this moment. Maybe not stripped naked on BART free, but disoriented enough to feel alive. All you have to do is never, ever forget Renar Hagen's flutter. You might want to jot that down.